Hello! Once again, my name is Elena Mahoney Sanchez. I am a Spanish artist based in Barcelona, and I'm thrilled to be part of this new sketchy challenge 30 Faces 30 Days watercolor edition. I am showing the process of 3 watercolor portraits, starting out with a sketch already done. I encourage you to take your time in the drawing because, as I always say, a good painting requires a good base. So nice and steady, do the nice drawing before you get started with the actual painting. We're mainly going to be focusing on our color palette. I would say my portfolio is mostly identified by the amount of saturation and intense colors that I use. So yeah, we're going to try and do a combination between a pretty vibrant color palette while also kind of understanding the colors that we actually see in real life, in the real reference picture, sort of trying to translate what we see to what we want to achieve with our vibrant color palette. In this class we are doing Tom Mather, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, alt ID card picture. I think it's a great reference picture because of all the colors and values. I think it's a very interesting picture. I would legit paint this for my own portfolio in oils, so I might do it in the future. But yeah, I hope you like the reference picture, and let's get started. Hello, welcome back to another watercolor portrait. Let's start by listing a little bit the materials I'm going to be using. Obviously my Schmincke watercolor palette. I'm using the same 3 brushes that I used in my last class, which are 2 round brushes. I'm using a big one to do big surfaces. I think this is the most versatile one. I'm also grabbing this very tiny one just in case I need to reach certain details, and I am trying to force myself to use a flat brush more often, but let's see how it turns out. I'm already starting, as I said, with a sketch already done. Take your time and do your proper sketch. And I'm using Arches 300 grams, cold press 100% cotton watercolor paper. It might seem a bit precise, but I believe that after many years of using watercolor, the quality of the paper is one of the most important things once we are painting. It doesn't seem that important in other mediums, but with watercolor it's really gonna pay off when you invest in good quality paper. So here we have a reference picture. I was thinking about doing the same technique of doing one base layer, but I think because this one is so subtle, I think we're gonna work with what we have, the white base. I'm gonna clean my palette real quick with this big flat brush. If you want to work with the paint that you already have on your palette, you're free to do it, but I'd rather waste a little bit of my paint just to start out fresh and clean and just get nice clean colors. I normally use this part on my palette. I also have this, but because it's so hard for me to I don't know, I think this flat part is much more useful. And I try to section my tones around here. You can already see how the white of the palette has already been tinted with that color that I normally use. I stick this in the cold spectrum of color, so I use blues, greens and purples. Normally purple here as a in-between, and here I use it for warmth colors like orange, red and pinks. Okay. The worst part about painting is knowing where to start. So I think I'm gonna start with the nose. Oops. Okay. I'm gonna start mixing ochre as a base. Also, I'm going to erase this line from the nose because I think it's just going to be in the way. Trying to respect the edges of certain parts of this portrait. I think it's important to mention that I actually edited the picture, the reference picture, before I started painting. Not too much. I normally do this whenever I start painting. I get the tone however I wanted, bring the saturation up a little bit, just switch a few things, but not much. Just going straight with yellow. I'm using the yellow as a base for my shadows because even though it's not pure yellow, the thing about watercolor is that we need to layer it for it to slowly build value and tone. Adding a bit of that ochre on the cheeks to limit that. I think I'm gonna go with the flat brush. Let's see how it turns out. Gonna go for a bit more pink, mixing with a bit of ochre that we already have in our palette. I want to create a mix between nice blended surfaces and clean edges. So what I like most about this reference picture, apart from the colours, it's how defined certain shadows are. So for example, the nose, it's I think the most evident of what I'm talking about. Gonna go for blue, mixing it with yellow to get a green, nice green. Bit more ochre. The problem with this sort of flat brush is the quality isn't really good. So the ends aren't as flat as I would like them to be. I'm trying to be very careful with that. Also, here I was trying to add more color here while the pink was already still a bit wet, so that it's not turning very clean. Because if you put too much water on the mix, it will sort of smudge rather than nicely blend. I talked about how one thing that people are interested with watercolor is how impulsive and how you sort of don't know what is going to happen until it dries. What's the word? Unpredictable. But I sometimes find it that it doesn't always work out as I want it to look. So I rather go slowly and use less amount of water than just keeping it clean. I shouldn't be defining this dark parts of the face this soon. Like I rather work on the middle values than jump straight to the details. But well, it's done. Something that I actually have done workshops about and that I very that I interiorize in my work just a few months ago is understanding how value works in color when we're creating a painting. So the three words that exist to define a color are tone or hue, chroma or saturation, and value. So even though it seems like these three things are independent one from another, they actually have a lot of they depend one from another. And I try to give this theory for people to create their own palette. So not only to create their own personal palette without taking actual attention to the colors of the reference picture, but also to understand a little bit more what's happening and how the image is actually visible. And I'm not happy with that grey. I'll just fix it real quick. Oh, I'm gonna go back to this. Here I'm doing a technique to blend just dry. So I'm using the bread salts to carry on spreading the stain of paint as far as it goes. Like normally when you think about how you blend watercolor, you would think that you slowly dilute it. You dilute the paint in water so you get the lighter version of the color you're trying to mix, and you go slowly getting rid of the pigment in the water stain. But what I also like doing is just getting rid of the water itself. So not only I'm gonna water the color, I'm just gonna get rid of the water in the brush itself. What I was especially trying to make you understand with the value speech is that whenever I am painting, whatever kind of painting, actually, my personal portfolio also, I do this, I try to obviously make sure I have the values correct, respecting the reference picture, but I also try to incorporate my own vision of the palette. So that's why I think knowing the theory behind color allows you to change certain colors however you want them, as long as it kind of respects that value. So yeah, knowing about color is gonna give you a lot of freedom, and I think it brings, I really think that to become a good artist, at least a good figurative artist, you need to have your knowledge on point. I think you need to have a basis of knowledge to being able to kind of create your own personal style. Okay, here I did that dry technique. I got rid of all the water in my brush, almost all the water in my brush. Just tried to spread it with the bread salt. But because it was way too dry, it will just leave a lot of texture in the paper. I'm gonna go back to my round brush to keep adding details in my nose. For sure, the worst part about doing a portrait is the beginning, because you don't really know when to start. But at the moment, I'm always starting with the nose. I think it's because it's just the middle of the face. But try going slowly, being patient. If you need a bit more time to figure it out, it doesn't matter. You don't have to go straight to the painting part. So yeah, one thing at a time. Try and give yourself time to figure it out before you go straight to paint. Start with what you know. That's a good advice. I want to create that harsh line on the edge of the nose. Actually, I can see a lot of cold colour in this side, so I'm gonna mix the difference between a yellowish green and a bluish green. I'm actually incorporating green a lot in my paintings, but that was actually very recent. I'm using greens since not that long ago, so I'm still sort of understanding how to mix green, because the theory of paint, of color, you obviously need to learn the basis, as I said, with hue, saturation and value, but still I think one of the most important recommendations that I have is just painting a lot so you understand how to mix color, I guess. Like, I remember when I was at school, I had a painting assignment and we were like mixing color. We were doing a basis color theory, color wheel. I remember my teacher, she was, and now that I think about it, she wasn't a great painter, but she understood color perfectly. I remember how she knew, just looking at a color for a few seconds, what color she needed to mix to get the right color. And I thought that was so cool, and it's just really amazing how when I look back and say, oh, I actually can do that now. And it was just pure practice and a lot of work. Something achievable, I guess. I mean, a bit more copper here in the cheek to warm it up a little bit. Adding a bit of pink in the lips. Not going too bold with it. Just a little bit. Even if you think it's very saturated at the moment, we still need to add a lot of color around the lips. And also the way watercolor dries, it's normally less saturated than you expect. So actually, if you give it a few seconds for it to dry, you will see how it's not as intense as you expected it to be. I'm trying to keep blending certain colors so they don't look weird, like this moustache that I'm doing at the moment. Because you can see a shadow, the very distinct shadow on top of the lip. I mentioned that I edited the picture before starting out because I wanted to make sure the palette was similar to what I like working in my paintings. But I don't know if you noticed, but I'm going more for a green undertone rather than a warm orange, as you can see in the rest of the painter. I think I'm doing a basic ochre green as sort of a medium tone, general tone for everything. And then maybe I will add more reds in the ears and the lips and maybe the nose to add a bit more warmth to it, more interest, so you can have like complementary colors happening in the same time. So yeah, I hope you understand. It's like I'm adding a bit more green than I can actually see in the reference picture, but I think it will look really good if I then add pink and red to certain areas. Slowly getting rid of the white. So I'm just doing a green for this part. We don't really see that much green, but I'm going to oversaturate the green that I see, or at least just a little bit, not too much. A mistake that I normally do whenever I'm adding a kind of risky stain is that if I see that I went a bit too far with the color, or too deep or too dark, I just simply add water and I think that that will be the solution. But most of the times whenever I do that sort of mistake and add that much water to my mix, it will only smudge everything up. So the stain that you just did, the risky thing that you just did, it's not only going to bring a lot of attention because it's it's vibrant, but also because it will look weird compared to all the cleanness of the rest of the portrait. A bit more bold this side. I think at this point it's extremely important to be patient. I don't know, it's just I am one of those persons that I jump into conclusions really quickly and I take risky decisions too early in the beginning of the portrait, and it will slowly build itself, but you need to be patient at this first stage of the portrait. I'm always a bit indecisive of what I'm going to do with the eyes because in my personal work I'm normally leaving the eyes unpainted, or I try kind of a smudging technique. I don't really like defining my eyes a lot. So I think I really like the green of the eyes. I think it really pops in the warmth of the face. Start painting the rest of the eyes. Eyelid. I think this portrait is turning out the most similar to one of my influences in watercolor. He's an amazing artist. I recommend checking his work. He's called Benjamin Björklund. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it okay, but he's an amazing painter. He does this fantastic watercolors, and he uses a lot of green. So, oh, and blues, turquoise blues. I think it's beautiful. So I check it out. I'm gonna smudge that green to the rest of the eye because even though we see a contrast between the blue and the white of the eye, the actual white isn't pure white. It's more of a yellowy colour. So I'm gonna do that. Okay. Trying to be very careful with the nose. Don't want to get rid of that nice clean edge. I think I went too far. Make sure to keep a clean piece of tissue nearby. I'm using a pretty dirty one, and I'm risking it a little bit because I can get my paint dirty. So yeah, try and keeping a nice clean piece of tissue nearby. Bit more red in the nose, not too much. There's actually a very nice gradient here. Do that. It's created not only by the structure of the nose, but also with the glasses, I think the eye area, because the reference picture, he's wearing glasses, I think it's just being a bit chaotic, but it will turn out okay. Just go slowly. A very important thing to understand with watercolor is we need to respect the time of certain wet stains. You shouldn't overwork an area that's close to a thing, to a space that you just work with and you need to let it dry. Try working, even though you're trying to focus in a certain area, try working other areas while that part is drying. It's just very possibly gonna ruin that. I'm actually adding more information through voiceover. Hopefully it's not noticeable. At the moment in Spain, it's really extremely hot. I believe that by the time I was painting this, it was like 35 degrees inside the house. So I was feeling very tired, I don't know, it's just a sick sensation. My brain was going super slow. I fascinated of how good this painting had turned out, but yeah, I couldn't really speak. Doing a light orange, sort of just to get rid of the white. Even I use a lighter yellow, just to substitute the white. Okay, I think that's a bit too bold of a yellow, so I'm just gonna wet my brush and blend and spread it around. I think spreading watercolor, it's the best way to not only get rid of a very intense color, but also kind of get rid of any rough edges. Okay, this green might be a bit too intense, but it doesn't matter because it will dry out very light. And I am going to spread this as a base color. It will look fine. Adding a bit more red here. Spread it with my bigger brush. No, I'm not happy with that yellow. I think it looks a bit more pink than yellow. If you're not happy with something, try dabbing it with a bit of paper before it dries. It's a common thing when you're doing a painting to feel that you're doing too much in certain areas, but that may be because you can't really compare to something next to it. So for example, I think I'm adding too much red in the mustache area, like in the shadow right there, but we need to understand that we still haven't added any value to the lips, any saturation, so that may seem like a big contrast, just too out there, but we still have a lot of work around the area. and adding more contrast in other parts of the face. So be patient. Again. Gonna grab my round brush again. Mix it with a bit of green just to get rid of the intense pink. Because even though we want to add a bit more value to it, we still don't want to go super pinkish. A way of darkening a colour, and what I mean is bringing the saturation down, please don't mix it with black. I think that will just ruin it. Nope. Going more for an orange. Defining a little bit more that edge. Nope, too dark. See if once we spread it, it doesn't look that dark. I can always dab it to get the excess paint out. Another way to get rid of excess, it's by dabbing your brush and just working on top of it. It will suck a little bit of that excess. So here I'm using a pure turquoise that I have on my palette. But if you don't have pure turquoise, you can always mix blue and yellow. Try go for a lighter version of yellow. Try not mixing like ultramarine with ochre. Go for more of a cyan light blue with camyon yellow or medium yellow or lemon yellow. Nice, like it. Okay, I'm gonna go. Sorry, I have my fan. Put my brush here so it stays. Gonna deepen up this corner of the nose, pink. Bit more depth to this. Trying very hard not to go overboard with the white water. Now that I think it's going very smoothly. For around here, you can see that there's a big gap of shadow. I don't know how to mix it. I think I'm gonna go for this orange, dark orange. Maybe add a little bit of pink. Sort of not only the shadow of the corner of the eyes, but the glasses. Here I just want to make a very light green. Add more details around the eyes. We want to create a contrast between these eyelid and here in the top, but I still consider there's no actual white, so I'm gonna get rid of that with a base yellow. Okay, I think that's too intense. I think I'm gonna go for more of an ochre. There we go. Hopefully it will dry out a bit lighter than this. I'm gonna do purple. A very nice way to do kind of light skin tone is by mixing purple and yellow. I think it creates a very neutral color. No, I don't like that. For an orange, go deeper here. Normally the under eye is more cold than warm, so I would use green or purple, but I don't know why here it looks a bit red, at least in the just in the corner, on the deeper side. I might mix it with a bit of this green yellow. Okay. I don't like this edge. Let's try fixing it. I think I was pretty sure early on in the painting that I didn't want any harsh lines. Obviously I do want a bit of contrast, but what I mean by this is I don't want shadows nor the darkest values of the face to look even near black, not even near blue, dark blue. I think I just want to go for a maybe similar color to the eye color, that green. Okay, this looks awful. Let me fix that too. Get rid of that edge. Okay, I think you need to understand something that I forgot to explain at the beginning, and I think it's key to control your watercolors, is knowing when to dab the brush in water and when to get the excess water out. So a way to, when I want to change completely the color from one color to another, I would obviously make sure my brush is clean by not only dabbing it, but going like this in the edge of the glass. So you squeeze that color off the brush, but I only do that whenever I'm seriously changing completely the colors. For this, for blending that, I will simply here, because it's not too saturated, I will simply dab it and use that dry on dry technique. Doesn't have to look perfect, but at least it does the work. Here I'm mixing this dark purple with pink and adding a bit of yellow to create a deeper version. I'll do the glasses. I'm actually going to grab my small brush to do this, because I think I'm going to go a bit more precisely. I think I'm going to go lighter, even though in the reference picture it looks super dark. I think I'm going to do a lighter version. Great. Now that I have my thin brush, I'm also going to line up this line from the mouth. Go a bit more magenta. Sort of blending that colour into the lip, top lip. Okay, they seem as pretty obvious, but one thing that they taught us at uni while we were drawing or painting was you need to spend more time looking at the reference picture and working on your palette than actually painting in your surface. Obviously, when you have a big knowledge and you know anatomy, it will get easy and you won't have to analyze that much, but you seriously need to pay a lot of attention to the reference picture before you go to the painting. Should do this once that line is dry. Yes. I feel that I'm working with a needle with this brush. It's so thin. Creating that shadow on top of the lip. Adding a bit more orange. The bigger the brush, the more you need to pay attention to the amount of water, because the bigger the brush, obviously, the more amount of water it can accept. So this brush is really easy to not do that. Okay, I think I went a bit too dark with this, so I'm just gonna water it and spread it. I recommend not using, even though I'm using at the moment a very small brush, I recommend not using that many. I think it is easy to work certain small details with it, but for big surfaces it will be pretty hard to have nicely even surfaces. Even the blending may be a bit harder when you're working with a small brush. So yeah, don't be afraid of using a nice, fluffy, thick brush. I think it will make things much easier than you expect. Oops. Okay, again, grab a little bit of this blue. Just go around here. Okay, I'm just getting rid. Not too much blue. A bit more yellow. And I think I need to go with a very dark version of green yellow booger. Around here. Just blend, blend, blend. Not too sure how I'm gonna do this because I don't really understand it. Oh, I like that colour. See how I blend it. Get my brush a little bit wet, not too much. Slowly blend it like so. Here the problem that I'm doing is I'm going too far and working it too much. So I'm just getting rid of a lot of watercolor, just leaving that harsh end. I want a smooth blend. Okay, I'm just getting rid of the white. There's a lot of white. I think one of the things that I like most about a flat brush is how easy it is to blend. It may not be that easy to make certain brush strokes. For example, when you want to paint a very defined area, it may be a bit hard to paint that certain area without getting the paint everywhere. But it is very nice to have nice defined lines, and it gives somehow a geometrical style to the painting. I think it's really noticeable in works by Benjamin Brooklyn, and I think they look sick. So yeah, maybe you should try incorporating flat brushes to your painting supplies. Did a basic purple for this part of the forehead. Should do the brows with this front brush. For the brows, I'm not sure if I want them to look warm or green, so I'm just mixing both. Let's see. Going slowly because I don't know the value that I want to do with them. I don't know if I want them to look super dark or medium dark. I think with watercolor you better go safe than risk it. One of the things you need to be patient about is double checking before you paint. Especially working with watercolor, you won't be able to fix any mistake once the paint is dry. And even if you go too saturated, too intense with the pigment, it'll be really hard to get back to square one. So yeah, I really recommend double checking. I've said several times that the more you paint, the faster you understand the reference picture. Because you have a common knowledge, and that will help you not only see certain details in the reference picture, but you already know a little bit how sort of a face and the light works around it. So you know the cheeks are warm, the nose is sculpted, how the nose is sculpted, the pigment, the lips. So common knowledge, but you still need to double check in the reference picture if everything you think you know is actually happening. Deepen up the corners. haven't actually painted this side of the eye. Give a little more depth to it. There's actually a highlight here that I want to respect. I don't know how I'm gonna do it without any liquid. How do you say? I'm sorry, I forgot the word. What you put before you start your watercolor paintings for certain areas to stay pure white. If I keep thinking like this, I am not going to be able to paint as fast as I would like to. I'm going to do a bit more deep. I consider myself to be a very impatient person, and that translates to my paintings in a way that if I'm not happy with how I start a painting, like if I don't like a painting in a very early stage, which is completely silly to judge a painting with the first stages, if I'm not happy with it, I'm probably or quit it, or I'm gonna do reckless decisions. I'm gonna risk a lot and then regret it and spend longer trying to fix those beginning mistakes than actually building up a good basis. And that is pretty impossible to do with watercolor. You can't really go back on your mistakes. So yeah, I was a bit frustrated. It's a bit frustrating to have a limited time to do this painting, because I was really enjoying it from the beginning, and that only happens to me like a few times a month, maybe even less than a few times 2-3 months. So it's nice, and I feel that even if I enjoy, even if I'm happy that I recorded it, I would have loved doing this by myself without a camera and without being forced to explain what I'm doing. Just watching a podcast, listening to a podcast, and just enjoying. I think since painting has become my work, it's a bit harder to find the enjoyment in every single painting that I do. think this red will really contrast with the green of the eyes. Nope. Nope. I think I'm gonna do the ears more intense, more red than they actually are, just to add a bit more colour. Should clean my brush a bit better. Adding very dirty red. Actually gonna leave it to dry and see how it turns out. Way too intense. I'm gonna go with more water. As I said, I really encourage you to pay attention to the reference picture, but also incorporating your own style. So I tried this by using my own color palette, but I do recommend you doing the same. Even if I'm using greens and reds and yellows, if you like purples more, you can swap those reds for purple, or you can change those turquoise for ultramarine blue. You can really do whatever you want, and I think that's the fun thing about painting, just doing your own thing. Grab my small brush, bit of detail. I really like, I would say it's one of the things I like most about this portrait and how it's turning out, is how the cheeks are going, how the cheeks are looking. I think they're very sculpturally done. I don't know, I think because I've limited so much those shadows, I think they look really cool. Just gives a lot of dimension and and contrast. I think I've never painted a portrait with glasses. And even though I do like the touch of the glasses in the portrait, I don't want them to be independent. I don't know how to explain it, but I want them to become part of the face. So if I'm doing the face in a very low contrast style with certain colors and certain lines, I want the glasses to have that same style, for them to be part of the portrait, not be just an individual thing that the face is wearing. Don't know if you understand. But yeah, I'm gonna do them very subtle. You won't even have to see them if you don't want them. If you don't want to. Can't really see the glasses at the moment. It's never too late to add essential details. I think the way I use watercolor, and it's very convenient because watercolor needs to dry. It's jumping from one area to another, and I think that's a way that it doesn't only help me not smudging the paint out, but also trying to compare and understand a little bit more what's going on. So taking one thing at a time, I could do a blend in the eye and then go back to the lips, and there's just slowly building more contrast, not only focusing in one area but jumping from one place to another. And yeah, the longer you look at the reference picture, the more defined everything looks. So obviously it sometimes happens that at the very end you start adding those details that make the painting really look top. I'm just going to use my flat brush. Here I'm just going with my flat brush and adding more copper to the face. I think I need to add a bit more, not only more contrast, more darker values, but a bit more warmth to it. It might seem a bit harsh, but I'm just getting rid of the excess water out from my brush and kind of blending it out, spreading it out. You would see me contortionate my contorsionando. I don't know how to say it in English, but basically the direction of in which a shadow is being blended, like a stain is being blended. It's easy to have your hand in that same direction. I wish I could paint with my left hand too, but I need to just bring my hand. I'm just making out words. I'm really sorry. Me estoy torciendo. Madre mía, estoy inventando todo. At this point, I'm adding more details around the nose, and I think I need a bit more. I think I need to pay a bit more attention to the features. Even though in general it looks really good how it's turning out, I do think it needs a bit more protagonism in the features, and even the ears. I'm leaving them more abstract than they look and just painting them in red and then adding a bit more definition. Not too precise, just adding a few lines to give them a bit more structure. It might be a bit risky, but I'm just making the shadows projected from the face. I'm not gonna do the hair, neither the hair nor the neck, but I still want to add a bit of 3D. I don't know, I think adding that harsh shadow will not only give depth to the face, but also look quite nice contrasted with the portrait and the warmth of the face. So yeah, I'm not being too precise. I'm just mixing a bunch of colors together. I want a dark green, not too saturated, so I think I'm mixing with a little bit of black, even though I just said that I don't like add color black to my mixes. But yeah, I'm just doing the neck shadow, and might do the bottom half of the hair just next to the ear, so that you can at least tell where the hair is going. You actually are free to do the rest of the portrait. Like if you want to paint the background in yellow, or if you want to finish up the neck or the hair, you're completely free to do it. I'm sorry that I didn't really show any process of it, because I really wanted to focus on having a well finished round portrait. So yeah, excuse me if you were expecting a full really detailed painting, but I'm actually quite happy with how it turned out. I think it brings the whole attention to the features and the color of the face. Okay, now I'm just adding a bit more color around the eyes, just to make them a bit more depth in them. Adding a mix. I like at this point of my palette that I can mix a bunch of colors together, so I sort of end up with the less saturated version of a color that we already have as a base. So I'm mixing sort of an orangey color, not only to add more depth to the eyes, to the inner corner of the eyes, but maybe add a bit more details in the lips or the shadows from the mouth and the nose. Connecting that top lip shadow to sort of a gradient into the cheek. I'm gonna clean my water, just one sec. At the moment, even though I would love to do a portrait with a background, I think that I would need like 2 hours more of just layering and layering deeper values, because it is so settled that if I do a background, it will just lose the focus on what is really important in this portrait. But I remember a period of time that I was a bit frustrated. Like, I really love doing watercolor studies in my watercolor paper, and it got to a point that I was a bit bored. I wasn't really finding my portraits any interesting, so I thought that maybe adding a background would add a bit more depth, more finished look to it. But I think that if you have a good watercolor study, there's really no problem with leaving the background in a white. I think that's the magic of watercolor. You can leave it as so you can see the actual magic of watercolor, that you work with the white of the paper. Here I'm just adding a bit more ochre, like a dark yellowish brown around that part of the face. I'm using a lot of ochre, a little bit of burnt sienna. If you don't have burnt sienna, you just can mix red and ochre or yellow with a bit of red. And if you get a too saturated version of it, maybe add a little bit of green just to darken up a little bit that red, so you don't start with the most saturated version of each color to get a very vibrant orange. Okay, I'm not gonna do the hair just because I think it's not. I don't have that much time, and I'd rather leave it this way than do it quickly and ruin it. I really like how it's turning out, and I don't want to risk it. I'm gonna add a bit more saturation to the ears and the nose. I wanted to add a bit more redness to overall certain features in the face. If your water is dirty, make sure to clean to replace your water. Even though you can't really see any too red, the nose is too red. Well, let me say that again. Even though you can't really see the nose as that red, I still want to add a bit more redness to it. I think I want to leave this part white, or maybe no, I think I'm gonna make another layer of very light yellow. Be very careful. If I just did that detail in the edge, if I go on top with a very watery layer of light color, I will just smudge everything, so be careful to leave those areas unpainted. Also, the nose, I don't want that many white, so I'm just going to do a layer on top, just to get rid of the white. Once it's dry, I will go on top and do a few more details, but right now it's fine. Here I'm doing the shadow from the chin, that depth we have between the bottom lip and the chin, that I completely forgot about, doing a bit purple around there. I'm gonna spread it about around in a second. Don't really understand the chin, because even though I want this part to be greenish, I still think there's a line like warm pink around there. To that corner, even though it's not very evident, I can't really see it in the reference picture, I still think it gives a very realistic effect. Here I am gonna add a dark color for this shadow from here. I don't know if it's a shadow from the glasses or just the corner of the eye, but still I need to add a bit more darkness there. Blend, blend, blend. Here I'm just gonna do another layer of green just on top of the already green. I don't know, just to add a bit more saturation because, as I said, it dried a bit lighter than I expect. And do a little bit of pink there. The more you look at the reference picture, normally the easiness to appreciate the features. So it's very common for me that when I feel that I am in the last stages of my painting, I will see and I will distinguish so many more details than in the beginning. So I will just feel that it's a never-ending painting because I always find something new to paint, something more to add. Here I did sort of a green base, but still I think I need to define a little bit where the hair is. So I'm just darkening up a little bit around here, just to make sure you can tell that that's the hair. Not going to do anything else to it, just add a bit more darker green in that part. Oh, and also add that little detail from the glasses. I'm going to add a bit more pink to the lips with a bit of magenta, mixing up with a little bit of that green I have left over in the palette just to bring the saturation a bit down, and making that you can see that the top lip has sort of a crease on top. So I'm doing this with the same pink and blending it upwards and sideways. Oh, and also the shadow from the nose here. I think it doesn't make that much difference, but I think it gives a bit more structure to the nose. Going for a medium yellow and going around the eyes. I think I need still need to add a bit more warmth into, at least around the eyes. I think adding that warmth into the eyes will bring the green from the eyes to really pop. So I'm just going to add a bit more red to that yellow mix, bringing that redness upwards. Again, be careful not to add too much water. I'm going on with even more red, just going straight to the ears. It looks super saturated, but no problem. I'm just getting rid of the excess with a bit of tissue paper. And I'm not sure if I'm going to blend that. I might leave it this way, just to give more of a unfinished look. Going with my small brush, and I am going to create a shadow in both sides of the nose to make it look sort of a round tip rather than flat highlight. Here I'm adding a bit more yellow to that green first layer. It doesn't look that much, but it's actually much more warm, a bit more ochre. And I'm gonna go for another layer on top of the bottom shadow, deep shadow. I don't want it to look too harsh, but I still think it needs one more layer. I believe that watercolor is so light and subtle that if you want a harsh shadow, you're gonna need more than a layer to do so. Gonna leave a geometrical Nope, I don't like that. If you're trying to correct a mistake that you just did, like I was doing in a moment, and you feel that the paint isn't really sticking out from the paper, I recommend adding a layer of water on top so that the pigment will sort of stick off the paper a little bit more. It's just the same way as when you're trying to fix an error with oil. You put in essence turpentine on top so that the pigment will sort of slowly unstick from the canvas. Here I'm just blending a little bit that shadow from the bottom half. I don't want it to look smudged. I just want to spread certain areas that it will, like this shadow continues into the neck. Not too harsh, just a little bit. And also with that same flat brush, just gonna do a thin layer of more yellow to get rid of the white. Okay, I think I am 100% done. I think I don't want to add any more details. Get rid of this white. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Just wanted to add this little shadow we have here in this side of the face. Not too much, it's a bit subtle, but I guess why not add it? I still believe there's more things I could add. If it was for me, I would keep painting until I was 100% satisfied. I am very happy with how it turned out, but I still believe there's more I could add. So I might keep painting out of camera, out of frame. But I guess this is just me being a bit too perfectionist. I'm adding a bit more red here in the bottom lip because I think it looked a bit too light, and kind of connecting the shadow from the chin with the lip, kind of getting rid of some yellow, some too clear values, and adding a bit more color around that bottom half of the chin. Here I'm adding even more red to the chin. It looks a bit weird at the moment, but maybe if I add a bit more depth to the green from that shadow in the limit of the face, it might look less bold. So I'm just going with a bit of dark, very dark ochre. It's like even a very warm sienna orangey. I'm adding a bit more color here in the sort of the dip of the cheeks, spreading it nicely with circular motions. And even creating a bigger depth there in that small detail that I just added. Adding a bit more yellow to the mix and just getting rid of more white. I think that if you want to keep highlights to really pop, you need to get rid of the white of big surfaces, like so. I am getting rid of certain parts that are too bright because they're taking away the focus on the real bright parts. Here I'm adding a one more layer of green in those eyes just to make them even more saturated. and adding a bit more of red, dark red, around the eyes. Just making them a bit bolder. Okay, done for sure. I'm gonna get rid of the reference picture, not look at it anymore. I am done for the class. Pretty sure I'm gonna leave it this way. I think I'm not gonna, but I mean I'm not gonna add any more background or hair or anything. I really like how it looks just like this. I think it really pops with the white of the paper. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and that you found it useful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!